The reason I'm asking about the return postcard thing and stuff like that is there's so many operations out there not doing these little pieces. Your outreach to those is worth so much more because it's not saturated by everybody hitting phone one, phone one, phone one, phone one. If anybody else is out here doing direct mail and you're not doing that, you should be doing it. Well, so you're just skip tracing them and calling them. Okay, that's fine as well. You're also doing that cold calling overlay, right? So you're going to catch them because you're probably at some point at least hitting it both ways. Right. There's also in the skip trace data, there's also a confirmed mailing address that oftentimes for those people will be different than the tax mailing address that you're actually mailing to. And that address is more from like the credit side, like where the phone numbers and stuff come from. So that oftentimes will actually get your card to that person and in front of that person. What is the fastest way to skip trace all the returned postcards? Gordon, I think, so Dan and Todd, how do you guys do it? So what do you do with this? You get a big stack back. What's your fastest way to do it? I think you can buy a barcode scanner for like 20 or 30 bucks. And I think that sticker, you can scan it in like Excel and it'll just, oh, your mail house does it. Yeah, that's the other thing too. If you're using a mail house to send, most of them have this option where you can just turn it on. Yeah, so Todd says he scans them into Yellow Letter HQ. Dan says his mail house actually receives those back and then does that in-house and sends him a list. I would highly recommend that. Dan, who do you use for mail? Yellow Letter HQ, yeah. Todd, you're using them too, I think. I think they have an option where they'll receive the cards back in through them and do that for you. I mean, if you're interested in that, check with them. Yeah, it's 19 bucks. Says Dan. Cool. Gordon, does that answer your question? Yellow Letter HQ. What else? I saw some people kind of check in here later on. What's going on with you guys? What's happening on the marketing front? What's working? What's not working? What are you dropping? Cool, Gordon. Yeah, I used to use them as well, Gordon. I like Yellow Letter HQ a little bit better. So Dan's question, because I know there's other users on here as well. So he said, I noticed on direct skip data, you have next of kin included in the data. Do you use these at all? And if you guys are using these, just chime in here. Let me know how you're using them, or let Dan know in the chat. Yeah, in some cases, yes, Dan. Like if you're doing a probate or pre-probate list, then oftentimes that'll happen. Really, what I like to do is just go off the deceased flag. So if that person's deceased, you still kind of might want to hit that phone number because oftentimes they'll hand that down to like their, either it's a spouse or a next of kin. Somebody will kind of take that over for a little bit. But in those cases, usually when they're deceased, you can bump to like the first relative, and that'll get you at least in the conversation, like the start of the conversation you want to have. And I'm sure there's some other people out there using it deeper than that, because a lot of times it's Todd says upload all the numbers and dial them all. I mean, like really with the dialers, guys, it's pumping through numbers so fast that like I would be hitting every phone number that comes back in that file. I would just hit it through the dialer. It's just going to tear through them all. And Todd brings up a good point. It's like he's saying you'll get deals from next of kin, like not only because they've inherited properties, but like there's a lot of next of kin living where their parents are, and maybe they want to sell their property. There's like all sorts of different ways. It's just if you can blanket it, I would just include all that stuff. There's so much valuable data and here's the truth of it, Dan. And some of this stuff, like the reason I'm asking about the return postcard thing and stuff like that is there's so many operations out there not doing these little pieces that like when your outreach to those is worth so much more because it's not saturated by everybody hitting phone one, phone one, phone one, phone one. That's the other thing too, guys, on the phones. If you are doing cold calling, even texting or anything else, I would hit for that first person, like anything in there that's one of their phone numbers, I would hit it. The reason is the scoring's a little wonky sometimes with how all this stuff gets put together. Because if a cell phone pops up all of a sudden last week or in the last 30 days, and there's also a cell phone that still shows active that's been there for 20 years, it doesn't know how to handle that other than like this one that's still there has to be the higher priority, right? So you get a lot of these little wonky things that happen in there. Now, Are they happening on a high percentage of records? No. But again, because it's not saturated by everybody else hitting them, it produces at a different rate. So you get enough out of it to where it makes sense. Like Todd for his part, it makes sense because he's trying to do so many deals a month. That next of kin, he can add that little effort in now just by uploading more data. Sure, it's going to mean more calls have to go out, but he's got plenty of that activity going on. So it's an easy pickup for him from the list. It's a list he already skipped traces, the data he already has. So the cost is already in it.